Esta conferencia comenzará a grabarse.
Okay, so welcome. Today there is an echo. Somebody has the. Okay, now. Today the topic is the role of intellectual property in the response to the COVID-19 crisis, and we want to express our gratitude to Davide Follador and Amarilis Verhoeven that are joining us today to contribute to the discussion. Very interesting discussion for today. This has been one of the hot topics during the past weeks, months now. Okay, and we have also here today to others of the main agents in the past weeks in this area. Okay, so I don't know, Davide, if Amarilis would like to start, or do we start opening the floor to the first positions from the attendants? Later you can answer to them. What do you prefer? Because I don't see Amarilis here.
Yes, exactly. I don't see Amarilis yet. I'm checking if she's joining or if she's had any issue in joining. Just a second. Sorry.
Okay. So while we wait for Amarilis, we can start speaking about that. Okay. Who would like to comment about his vision or her vision of this topic? Miguel, that you are here and you are one of my guests for today, special guests. Okay. Will you share your point of view?
Sure, of course. Let's say for the beginning that I'm coming from the university, so I'm aware of all the patterns and all the strategies and everything that you need to do. But I think that we are right now in a position with the pandemic, that we need to share more than ever. So basically, I've been trying to tackle this problem of the respirators, not the ventilators, the respirators, the face masks. And the problem is that you have several main companies. I'm quite sure that you get the names in your head, that they have homologated versions of the face respirators, and we were basically contacting them and asking them to share. If not, so basically we were asking, are you able to fulfill all the needs? And in general, the answer was, in principle, we could, but clearly this was not the case over the past weeks. So the next thing that we were doing was asking them to license their models, but this never happened from not even one of the big companies or medium companies with homologated versions. That never happened. So I think that in parallel to the open versions that we are trying to develop, I think that a good strategy in Europe would be to have some mechanism that in an emergency case like this one, you could enforce that they license. Of course, we are not talking about giving for free. We are talking about licensing and getting proper revenue for that. But I think that we didn't have enough flexibility to get a lot of companies. So, for example, in the case of Spain, I got in contact with a lot of injection molding companies, like 20 of them, that they were just asking us, like, the moment you have some homologated version, we will start injecting. I'm talking about the flexible ones, about the rubber. And they were saying like we will be able to inject and to provide, and we will do it, not with no benefit, but we need a homologated version, because as far as someone tries to give something that is not homologated, you need to pass all the tests, and that means months. So, for example, I'm developing one that is an open solution, and we are working very, very hard with a lot of companies trying to get this done, and still we are in the process. So this is something that takes time. So I think that this licensing enforcement would be something that we could do for the next scenario that we find.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm sorry to be late. My name is Amaryllis Verhoeven. I had problems accessing via the link, so I joined in by phone. Can you hear me?
Yes, Amaryllis. Welcome.
Yes.
Welcome. We hear
Yes.
you perfect.
Hi. Good morning. So I'm just there on the phone because the link somehow didn't work on my side.
Okay, so sorry. I'm sorry for that, but we can hear you and you can hear us. So we can.
Yes, we hear you. So please go on. I didn't want to interrupt. I just wanted to say that I'm there finally. Okay. So, and I'm listening with interest to what you say.
Yeah, if you don't mind, we can start with this kind of positions, okay, from the audience.
Yes,
And
please.
you
This would be very good.
You could comment on them if you want, okay?
Indeed, this would be fantastic for us to learn what are your concerns about IP and COVID-19. That is exactly what we would like to hear, so we can see how can we respond or how can we react to that. Thank you.
You are very welcome. I know very well, or a little, about what Miguel Angel and the coronavirus makers has been doing here in Spain, okay? We have tried to help them, okay? And I can testify that they have fight with a lot of efforts in this field, okay? But the results are poor because, as you very well know, they started printing in 3D very soon, but with no homologated models, okay? And until now, Miguel Angel, you can correct me, there is no new homologated injection model, no?
Mm-hmm.
Indeed, not only from us, coronavirus makers. I know for a fact that there are several companies trying, but this is a lengthy process, so still is ongoing. And we have already in Spain almost 30,000 deaths. So it seems a little bit.
And just to be clear, we are speaking about lives, because probably you know, but here in Spain, the health professionals are the most affected population in terms of illness and die. Okay, we are speaking about near 20% of them, something like that, with the illness. Okay, because they haven't had the proper equipments, and we could have provided them. That's the real discussion here. We are speaking about lives.
Yeah, of course. Just for my understanding, you say we still don't have homologated models. Does that mean that you have not been able to manufacture, or does that mean that you fear that those models are not exactly compliant? Just for my understanding.
Is basically both. So it's basically that we need to do the R&D from scratch, because otherwise we even get sometime some information from, I don't know, I will say here publicly, even we got some information from 3M, maybe taking actions against us, like what? But we are not afraid, because we are developing everything from scratch. But that's for once. And the second thing is that in all the getting to to comply with everything and doing all the lab tests, that's also lengthy in itself.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. And have you been approaching the companies that originally developed all those models?
Yes. I did it here in Spain from one of the main one, the leader one in Spain, and the answer was we are able to fulfill all the necessities here and in Europe, and then I basically moved the link and I passed this link to the European Cluster Alliance, and of course they couldn't. So yeah, no good answer.
Okay, so the original company is not in a position or is not able to manufacture, to meet the demand. You're trying to step in, and you experience a difficulty that you don't have the necessary technological underpinnings. It's not just a question of liability, but also of having the technological capacity, no?
Yeah, of course, developing from scratch.
Yes. Yeah, you have to redevelop it from scratch. Okay, yes, I understand. So, and that was the answer that you got from the original company. We are able to meet the demand ourselves.
Yes, and they basically like I could even read the email. To me, is something quite interesting.
Okay.
When they say we have experience like 30 years, we export to 70 countries, so we are able. Like, okay, then do it. But the thing is that for some reason, I don't know. I cannot see why, but they are not doing it. And on top of that, actually, to be honest, I've seen some images around of these products going to Switzerland, for example, and then some Spaniards taking pictures and saying like, why this product is here and not in Spain. So I don't know why, but basically, the thing that I asked them was, if you are not able to do it everything for right now, like really right now, please license your models, and then you can earn whatever you need to earn. But please license, because I have 20 companies that they want to do an homologated version, and you can do it, limited in time, something like that. But that never happened.
Okay. All right. Well, there's several answers to this. First of all, if I were you, you're a Spanish-based company, no?
Not at all. I'm really no. I'm just a volunteer. I'm trying to develop a solution because there is no solution there.
I understand, but you are in Spain. You are in Spain.
No, yes. Just for your information, sorry, Marilis, because we didn't put the context. Okay? Miguel Ángel is part of the coronavirus makers movement.
Yes.
It's a civil movement that groups something like 20,000 volunteers. It's a lot of volunteers. Most of them from universities and from not only, they are very highly qualified professionals. And in his case, he's working for the University of Barcelona, and he has experience. He has the capacities, okay? And he is working also. We have been collaborating from the European Cluster Alliance, from this, also from the companies, generally speaking, companies with that are closely related with collaborating with them, okay? So it's not, this is not a legal entity, but yes, I could say that they are a very serious movement.
But on top of that,
I have no doubt. I just wanted to know where you were based, and I'll explain you I'll explain you the reason. Yeah. Hello.
Sorry, I just wanted to add that the main development, of course, we need to do it with companies. Even if we are volunteers, this is nothing that you can do at home. So of course, we have companies doing this development. Yeah.
Yes, of course. No, I understand. Look, just my advice to you. First of all, if you look at the legal framework, okay, but that's just the abstract legal framework. There, under IP law is about protection, of course, but it is also about creating access and creating flexibilities, exactly for situations like this. So, in a case there is an emergency, a national health emergency, and an original manufacturer is not able to manufacture in order to meet the supplies and the demands, then IP law foresees a couple of measures in order to make sure that others can have access to the IP. And that's not just a question of legal liability. It is also a question of having potentially access to the related technologies, because often it is also a question of the training, etc., understanding how to do it, not just having the legal entitlement, but also understanding to do it. Now, the classical tool to use this, and so far this hasn't been used anywhere in Europe because there wasn't really a need, as far as we understand, is a compulsory license. Yeah. Now, a compulsory license is basically a situation whereby a state approaches a company and says, sorry, but we need your technology now. We're going to pay you, but for a limited amount of time, since you are not able to meet the demand, and we have a serious issue here, people are dying, we need to buy up your license. Okay? Now, compulsory licenses are issued at national level. This is a national competence. This is not a European competence. So the first port of call, when you experience such a problem, there is two things that you can do. A very wise thing to do is to contact your own national patent office. Yesterday, we have also a group, right? And that's a group of all European patent offices. So people from the member states in ministries and patent offices. And they are on a daily basis trying to help people facing these problems. Yeah. What they do is either, they try to assess your situation. If you, under IP law, can already manufacture without getting any license at all, that might be the shortest cut. If you need a license also because you need to have a deeper insight in technology, they're going to try to help you get one, or try to help you see where you need to go in order to get one. And in emergency situations, they might also issue compulsory licenses. So that's a very good entry point for you to deal with. Now, on top of that, since, you are a very European movement, and we also have a keen interest in making sure that in all member states solutions are available, we have also created a dedicated COVID-19 help desks. Now, I do not know whether my colleague, Davide Follador, is there. Davide, are you around?
Yes, he is.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so I will give you the floor in a minute to explain a little bit the COVID-19 help desk that we have set up in the clearinghouse, because that can also help. And this is basically an instance where we try, at a European level, help companies like you. What is a help desk? Is basically a telephone line. And behind those telephone lines, you have people from our existing help desks that can listen to your problem, understand your problem, and try to work together with you to a solution. Yeah. If the solution needs to be coming from the more political level, then we can intervene as well. For us, it is a fantastic tool to understand, okay, if there really a problem, and maybe we can help contact the company or whatever. Yeah. So that's the other help solution that we have. What we see, however, I'm a little bit amazed to hear that story, that in this case, the original manufacturer says, sorry, I'm making everything available. There is no problem. Therefore, we're not going to help you get any access. So far, we have seen rather the contrary. And that is, we have seen companies that hold critical technologies behaving in a very responsible manner. Yeah. Either by getting organized in this kind of pledges, public pledges, whereby they make part of their IP freely available on a temporary basis, subject, of course, to conditions. They want to protect, of course, also their business, which is understandable, but they do a gesture in order to allow others to come in, and typically, of course, the reconversion manufacturers. So that is the situation we see. If in your situation the problem is still not resolved, well, then we need to take note of it and see what we do. And either that means a compulsory license at national level, or that can mean something else. What we are also doing at the Commission level, We just have found a contractor who will do a mapping of all those problems together with us. And we are thinking of creating some dedicated platforms, right? Platforms where licenses could be made available, not on the basis of a classical compulsory license. It would be rather a voluntary scheme, but with some public blessing in order to create some, that's a bit technical, but make sure that the licenses can only be used to deal with these kind of emergency situations. Because the problem for the original companies is usually the following, okay? So I'm now trying to reverse a little bit the picture. If I'm a regional company and I have other people coming to me and say, please give me access to your technology because we want to help save lives, which is very laudable. Most companies will, of course, have sympathy for that. But what they fear is that once they give up their technology to other companies, then they lose control, not only during the coronavirus, but also afterwards. And what they really fear is that other companies then start making stockpiles, big stocks of what are their products, which they're going to use also beyond the coronavirus crisis. And then, of course, they lose completely their business model. So somehow they want to give access, but they also want to control the access, yeah? Access under certain conditions. And that you can achieve through the creation of patent pools. So right now we have different instruments. I would say if there is a problem, in principle, we should be able to find a solution. I don't accept a situation where there is a genuine problem that we cannot resolve. The toolbox is there, and we're also further developing the toolbox. So, voilà, that would be my message, yeah? Of course, you will say, well, I want a solution now. I'm not a magician, but we can offer you the help of our COVID-19 European Health Desk, or you can also get in touch with the national authorities or do both, and together we can look for good solutions, no? Maybe, Davide, you could say a few words about the COVID-19 Help Desk that we've been trying to set up, no?
So, sorry, before David participate, I will invite David Quartiers because I know that he needs to leave in some minutes very, very soon, and he wanted to participate. So, if you don't mind, David.
Yes, please.
Quartiers.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me fine?
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. I mean, I work together with Miguel Angel, and I want to make a couple of things very clear that I think they are really not understood. We're not a company. I mean, this has to be understood. I mean, I don't know when the COVID-19 help desk was put in place, but we started working on March 9th. And with all the respects, I mean, we work with open hardware. We have like no interest in patents. So
I understand.
what happens as a social movement? We have no legal entity. We have nothing to be put against. So if somebody comes and claims that somebody's infringing a patent, it happens on an independent level. So what happens here, for example, is that Miguel Angel is making a tremendous research, and I invite you to look through it. And he's very careful with everything he's doing. I mean, I want to spare you of mentioning his references. I think that you can research yourself. And what happens here is that he's very concerned about the fact that maybe, to some extent, we shouldn't be doing what we are doing, but we've been the only alternative people have had for a while. So this is the reality. And then what happens is that the legal framework and all the bureaucracy in the universe is really not helping. So I think the reason why we are here, and I want to make this very clear, is to explain you that the mechanisms you're putting in place are not supporting the current situation. And there might be other situations in the future that cannot be supported with this legal framework. So we need to figure out alternative models that will help us face the future challenges that Europe is going to face. So that's why we're here, because we're really committed to solve the situation. So how can we get social movements that have no legal entity to participate in these situations? How can we get these hordes of volunteers that have tremendous knowledge, that are actually giving the knowledge for free to companies, which is the case that we are aware of what we are doing, participate in this discussion, and how can they be protected? Because the current legal framework is far too slow, and can help out in the context we're in. So to me, just again to clarify it, when you're all the time talking about there is these companies and there is this, I'm a company owner. I don't know if you know Arduino, but I'm one of the founders of the Arduino company. I make all of my IP open so people can actually replicate it. So I wonder whether we should consider that under the circumstances, this legal framework is basically not operative. And I wonder whether, as Europe, we should consider that for the future, we need an entirely different legal framework. And maybe this is an opportunity to actually change things. So this is my claim. My claim is whether we should not think about an entirely different way of understanding how we have to work in the future. And this situation has brought up the best and the worst from everybody. And in a matter of like 60 days, we've seen the best and the worst from companies, legal entities of any sort, bureaucracy, politicians, our neighbor, everybody. And in the particular case of designing medical devices, we've seen how the exact same device we've designed was approved one day, denied the day after for political reasons, and reapproved 2 weeks later by the Ministry of Industry in Spain. So how can we build these shortcuts that will allow this socially crafted innovation to be brought up and used? These are the questions I think we need to answer. Not so much about defending the IP from companies. The IP for companies, as a company owner, I know it gets time and money to build it. But when a situation like this comes, nobody gives a fuck. I'm sorry for my language, but nobody cares about how relevant that IP is and how relevant the patents are. When your dad is dying, when your neighbor is passing away, when your whole street has like 60 people infected. So who cares about that? So how can we incorporate all of these efforts? I think these are the challenges we need to discuss about. This is the relevant thing that we need to talk about, and not about, that's my 2 minutes and a half intervention. Thank you.
Okay. Look, I'm listening to you. IP should not be an obstacle. I completely agree. Yeah, it's not being created to make people's life difficult, or it should not be like that. Okay, there's two scenarios. There's two things that I hear here. First of all, access to IP. Yeah, if you don't have the IP, but there is somewhere an existing IP, in times of crisis, you should just be able to use it. And what I'm saying is that in principle, the framework also allows for that. Hence my question also. You say that you've been operating as of the 8th of March. Okay. You seem to be worried about IP, but in practice, has any of you been threatened by any claim by anybody? Is a problem that is, has any of you been facing any?
Informally, yes.
Informally, yes. So what has happened? You have received threats like stop doing that or else?
Yeah, like in my particular case, I guess that here I'm okay saying it. We have, it's always this fuzzy that somehow it reaches you like you should be aware that 3M is not very fine with what you are doing. Like, so it's always like that. They are approaching you in this way.
Okay, well, if they do that, they shouldn't do that, okay? We cannot be responsible for individual behaviors of companies. Again, as you say, indeed, this crisis shows the best and the worst, okay? We've seen also a lot of examples where companies just said, okay, fine, here you've got it. It's not just that we are not going to sue you, but we are actually actively going to help you understand the technologies and make use of it under certain conditions in a limited way. But here is how we can help. So many companies are doing that. If companies are really not doing that, well, if I were you, I would just go on. Yeah. I would try to talk to them and in particular, I would try to seek the help either of national patent offices or some IP experts who can help you sort out the issue, okay? If at all there is an issue. Then the other thing that I hear is that you are also developing on your side, open source, some new technologies. And that is what I understand. What is it that you are bringing in terms of new innovations here? Now, because one thing is that you say, okay, fine, I need access to an existing technology. And then basically it is about trying to use the IP that belongs to somebody else, which indeed should happen in these cases. I'm not saying it should not happen. It should, yeah. And under the current framework, it can also, but the reverse, I also hear another thing, and that is that you, together with other companies, are creating, developing some IPs, and you do that open source. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, all right. And what is it? Yeah, and what is it we are talking about here? What are the models or the technologies or the ideas that you are developing open source? Just for my understanding.
Sure, of course. So in my case, in my particular case, this movement has is touching basically every need that we find and basically that we identify. In my particular case, I'm trying to develop an face mask that is using one of the filters, homologated filters that they already have in intensive care units and so. And I basically I always explain that we are the finger that is pointing to the problem. That if we are the solution, that's perfect for me. But you know, there is so much knowledge already accumulated there outside that I think that in my particular case, I'm not against. I'm the first thing I did was to contact the companies and say like, please, if you can do it, do it. But that never happened. And we got the as Antonio was saying the needs with the healthcare staff. So in a sense, I never stopped because the solution never came.
Yes. So you're developing technologies at your end, and you do that together with others, right?
Yes.
That is what I hear you say.
Yes.
Okay. And you make that. Yes. Sorry, I cut you.
So only saying that I'm completely agree with you because the companies that we are getting involved with, they are opening all the technologies that they have around. It's only that they don't have the level to the, but they are for sure.
Okay, so that is actually the good example. Again, I mean, IP is basically about one thing. That is about deciding about who is the owner of something, which is very often also the basis of cooperation. Here, what I hear you say is that you're working together with a whole group of people trying to design some new technologies. And indeed, in the current context, we see that more and more innovation is a result of co-creation, right? So you have a group of entities coming together. Now, in that context, and then, many companies indeed decide to do that open source. Now, for us, again, and I'm sorry to be legal about it, open source does not always mean without IP, and it actually shouldn't mean without IP. Open source basically means, and it depends on what you're talking about. Are you talking about, materials that could be protected by copyright or by patents or whatever, because then the legal regime is different. But an open source means usually that people come in, they make their IP available, the IP they have already, and they agree that the results of that research can be freely used by them or by others. Even in such a situation, our recommendation is always to manage the openness somehow, and that is what we see happen. You have a lot of open source platforms. In these platforms, it is good to have some basic agreements saying who owns what, who has brought in what, and under what conditions others can use it. Why? The danger of unmanaged open source movements is that your technology, if it is very good, ends up being privatized by somebody else. And that, unfortunately, we have seen happening.
But this is not our case. We are very lucky here having people like David Quartiers with much of a background with licensing in open source. So it's not a concern in our case. We're licensing properly. And
very good. Yeah. Okay, so you manage that well. Okay, but that was my only concern, because sometimes, we have had companies coming to us and say, we want to be open, and I'm not interested in getting money. I want to do something good for the world. That's all fantastic. But the world out there is full of sharks. And if you don't manage your openness, starting by saying, I am the owner, then somebody else might come and take that just for free and run away with it. And we've had some sad cases. So that even if you want to go open source and Creative Commons, all this passes somehow through IP management. Yeah, and this is again, but what I'm trying to say now. I hear you say, look, shouldn't we just go for a change of paradigm? We can't go on with IP, which is just private ownership, and then all kinds of bureaucracies and difficulties if you want to get access. I have full sympathy for you. Yeah, the mechanisms that we have, again, the law is not too bad. The flexibilities are there, but do we have the tools to really react very fast? Maybe not always, yeah? And that's why, I've been talking about the help desks. The help desks are basically trying to help you on the basis of the existing tools we have, okay? But what we now also are launching within the Commission, so I talked about this project whereby we are looking into impact licensing models, okay? And what is that? That is actually models whereby we would stimulate the creation of voluntary patent pools, yeah, voluntary IP pools, which bring together critical technologies that are owned by people, but that everybody needs, and that are made accessible for a fee, but a very affordable fee, and under certain conditions. So you can only then use that technology in certain circumstances for certain purposes, etc. Yeah. And the interesting idea, what we are now trying to develop, the problem still with these patent pools is that once you get a license, and again, I understand this is not your case. You're just a group of volunteers. You're not companies. You're trying to cope here with the current situation. Okay. But the patent pools that we have in mind and the model that we try to develop, and again, this is not for now, unfortunately. Yeah, this is probably for a later stage in this crisis or for the next crisis. It's also learning by doing and trying to cope and trying to react and expand our rule book and our tools that we have. The patent pool, the impact licensing pool that we're talking about, would have two sets of guarantees that right now are very difficult to manage. First, the guarantee that the fees are really low, but the second guarantee also that the IP that is being made freely available is afterwards not misused. Typically, the stocking, somebody using that, you might start as a volunteer, but then afterwards they say, hey, well, this is actually a profitable business, and misuse your access in order to start a competitive activity against somebody who gave you basically something for free. So again, that's a way whereby we try to manage. We call it impact licensing. And the idea comes from social impact. It is basically trying to inject a social impact culture in the world of IP by creating this new tool. We don't have it yet, but we hope to put it in place. If we see a real need for certain products still now, then we will try to set it up already now. Now, meaning not today or tomorrow, but relatively soon. We could do some pilots. And if it works, it could be a new model and a new tool to be added to the toolbox that we have. I don't know whether that is of any interest. The problem with all these calls is I don't see you, so I don't see your reactions. Yeah.
Yeah, my reaction, I can tell you, is like, of course, I thank you for the positive answer, and I'm willing to get in touch with the help desk. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, please do so, and also feel free to send us an email. We need these stories to learn from. Yeah, we can only think about tools and about rules and how to adjust the framework if we have indeed these stories from which we can learn. So, Davide, maybe you can explain in a couple of words what is the COVID-19 help desk, how to reach out to the help desk, what the help desk will do, how we try to help, if that is useful.
Yes, of course. Good morning.
Thank you. Davide, go on.
Yeah, yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, very good. First, a quick question. Miguel Angel, you mentioned homologation of products. Are we referring to certification or approval of products to meet regulatory standards, specifications such like safety or technical requirements?
Yes, completely, 100%, because the solution we are trying to develop or to fulfill or to license or whatever, but the solution we need here is the equivalent to the FFP3. So basically, is the last resort for the healthcare workers in the most extreme ambient that exists on Earth right now. So for sure, we need to comply with all the laboratory results, all the tests, and everything. So we need a full homologation.
Okay.
Ah,
Because
okay.
okay, this makes me this helps us understand that probably here we are talking more about a problem of certification and standards rather than intellectual
Yes.
property. I'm not saying that it might not be intellectual property issues, but as far as I understand, this is mainly an issue of technical certification.
I'm sorry, sorry for jumping in. Of course, here are two separate problems because again, I define ourselves like the finger pointing to the problem. If we are able to develop a open source solution, that would be amazing because then third countries could also use it and so on. That's amazing in itself. But I'm more than aware that we cannot reinvent wheel. So basically, I was in touch with all the companies and to try to get the IP from them and saying like, okay, let's not do everything from scratch. Doing it from scratch is very nice also in itself, but we need it now. So that's why I think that the two problems are on the desk right now.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have an issue of certification, which is one level. And on the certification, again, this is not our domain because here we are discussing about IP, but as a general information, as you know, the European Union, but also national authorities have decided during the crisis to make available for free several standards concerning protective equipment to fight COVID-19. So this is an initiative that is concerning standards and certification, and we can definitely help provide additional information. When it comes to intellectual property, because in this case we can have patents involved, we can have design involved, and as Amaris was explaining, there are legal instruments like compulsory licensing issued at a national level. Some national systems provide for fast track, others don't. But more importantly, what we have seen in this current crisis is that in case of emergency, I'm talking about the need to save lives, the need to react now with a solution to save someone's lives because he's been infected by COVID-19, because he cannot breathe, because he needs a respirator, has happened. We had a case, for example, of in the very early stages of the crisis in Italy. I'm Italian, so I followed it with additional attention. We had the case of a company volunteering to 3D printing a part of a ventilator itself to provide to hospitals that were in need of urgent supply. Well, in this case, apparently there were threat of or risk more than threat of infringing patents on some specific features of the ventilator. Ultimately, the company owning the patent decided not to sue the person, the volunteering 3D printing those components. So there was no IP infringement liability. But from an additional and further analysis of the case, what came out is that in the Italian law, but it's not only the Italian law, this is something that is also available in other legal systems. In case of emergency and state of needs to save lives, IP liability is exempted or is limited to a small compensation. So even in case of risk of infringement, the legal framework as it is now of intellectual property protection and infringement has flexibility in place to respond to this kind of emergency. So this is to say that it's a complex legal environment, we need to, first of all, understand if we have a certification on a standard problem on one hand, and if we have an intellectual property issue on the other hand. Because as far as I understand, even if an open access, an open source solution is developed, that we have to comply with technical and safety certifications in order to be able to supply hospital and to be used on human beings. But that's another level of analysis. I don't know if I clarified a little bit more the issue.
Thank you very much, Davide. Very, very, very interesting. I would like to hear other opinions, because we are a lot of people here and from different countries, and this is open for everybody. So I don't know if somebody else want to comment or share experiences or problems.
If I can just pick up on the story, indeed, the story of the 3D printing in Italy, we did a bit of a rapid legal analysis when we heard about that months ago. And our conclusion was indeed that if at all the company were to be sued in Italy before an Italian court, the chances for the original company to win that case would be 0. So, and for all the reasons that Davide explained, and what I said, the IP system contains flexibility. It is actually a balanced system. Now, of course, you're going to say that as such might not entirely resolve your problem, in the sense that you want to have a guarantee against the liability in the first place. And second, having just an indemnification against liability might not always be sufficient. Because what you really want is to have a thorough access to the technology and to the training that comes with that technology. And it's for that we are now looking into this new tool, which is the impact licensing and the platform. So I just wanted to add that in order to explain. And the legal system as such is flexible enough. But what we are now looking is at extra tools that could make our lives easier in cases like this. But then again, as Davide says, if your problem is actually compliance with technical standards, well, that is not an IP issue, right? So that is a problem with certification.
Okay, thank you very much, Ana, Marilise. Dolores, you wanted to share something?
Well, good morning. Well, in fact, it's what just is said. In fact, I just say open licensing, but I realize now that the formal definition is impact licensing, but the concept that I want to transmit is the same. Best, if it's necessary to find technology to complete the solution, try to make this platform where you can put your knowledge as a open source and try to find the complementary that is needed to complete the fabrication or the component that is needed or whatever. And in this sense, I think that the World Health Organization is already doing something similar, and they meet twice per year in the case of to concentrate scientists and discuss and analyze about the evolution of the grip. So to see if there is new mutations or new issues, and they do for open source, for the free of knowledge for all the world. So I think that the idea is similar with this concept or this platform of impact licensing. So I think that it can be a great tool.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Indeed, there is already a platform in the WHO context, which is the Global Medicines Patent Pool. And that is very much focusing on medicines, where we have, of course, big access issues. Typically third countries who can't afford the IP, but they need the medicines and they need affordable medicines. So the medicines patent pool has been created in order to cater for that need. And that is a good example. What here we are talking about is sort of, still different patent pools that would be actually there to deal with normal technologies, not medicines, but normal, ordinary technologies that could become very, very needed in times of crisis. So where normally you don't have these big access needs, but in an emergency situation, you need absolutely this access. And these are these impact licensing models that we are trying to develop. So voilà, but that's the idea, making sure that IP is actually not a basis for exclusion, but a basis for inclusion. And we need much more of that, we're convinced.
Thank you. Davide, I will propose you to share through the chat the telephone number or the link to your service, if you don't mind. We will also write an article on the ECCP COVID-19 Forum, okay? Just to share the information, okay?
Yes, please. That would be very good, because we created a help desk to be useful. And again, we want to help, but we also want to hear the stories, because we want to learn from this crisis, also for IP. We want to have an IP system that serves us, our economies, and our people. IP is not an end in itself. It's there to help. So we can only learn from these stories. And the help desk is there to collect also that.
Perfect. Thank you. More comments, we have 10 minutes, yes, or 8 minutes yet. Any comment, any question, any suggestion from the rest? No? Okay. You have in the screen the link to in the chat also, the link to the article that we are writing today. Okay, we will complete it with the references that Davide and Marilis are giving us. And I'm quite sorry, because I think that we should have organized this by the conference far sooner, probably something like 7 weeks ago. It will help us a lot. So this is part of our mistake, not to do it before. But the good news is that we have established this link. So thank you very much for your participation.
Antonio, I'm Ilaria from Italy.
Ilaria. Okay.
Sorry. Just a reminder, in connection with the disruption of supply chain, we were talking about the IP right, because of the need of mapping the supply chain and the disruptions we are facing. Now Veronica is gone, so I don't know, because it's not exactly my topic, but we have some issues about it. Maybe not now, maybe some other day we can go deep into this.
Or we can use also the created link with the Marilis team and yes, contact, but it will be possible to organize something. Yes, something new. Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Look, you know us now. We are just a phone call away. So if it can help, we're happy to.
Okay, perfect.
Good.
Okay, so
and congratulations for your initiative, because we are talking about a law and you're trying to save lives. So all things well considered, that's far more important what you are doing.
Thank you very much. You have a very important role on this point. I understand that it's very difficult to change anything in a very quick way, but we need to be prepared, because perhaps we could face a rebound not so far. So a possibility.
Absolutely.
Or one variation of the virus. So it's important. The knowledge that we are creating, the links that we are creating are really, really important. So thank you. Thank you, everyone. And tomorrow we will speak about the advanced textiles that has some relation also with IP rights. So you are invited to participate. Thank you.
Antonio, just to remind, you asked David to share the contacts of this line. It is not done. Please do it. Everyone is seeking to know it.
Yeah, David, do you know how to use the chat?
Yes, I can send the contact, but I need to give a little bit of background to it because this is the contact of the European Clearing House of Medical Equipment. And the purpose of the Medical Equipment Clearing House of the Commission is to facilitate the demand and offer of critical equipment. In the context of the clearing house, we also have activated the COVID-19 IPL desk to clarify any horizontal IP issues. I would prefer to share some information in writing, including the contact of the clearing house, because just sending an email like that without knowing the background might be a little bit confusing. So if you agree, I can share it to you, Antonio, and then you can circulate it.
Perfect.
And Antonio, if I can come in here, here's Ulla speaking. I would like to say that I'm in contact with the people from the clearinghouse, and I have asked them whether they would be available one morning to discuss with this team, and I'm waiting for their feedback. Just to
Perfect. Thank you, Ulla. Thank you, Davide. So we continue. See you soon, I hope. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye-bye.